Hi, I'm Neelima Chakra. I coach professionals to increase their capacity and effectiveness, be visible, valued, and rewarded, and be the leaders they want to be. In the seventh episode of the series, Leading with Purpose, my guest is Sudhir Dasmantharao. He is a powerhouse of energy, as you will see, from the number of things he's involved with. He offers unique frameworks and metaphors in his advice to mid-career professionals about how to navigate their careers. Happy listening. In today's episode of Leading with Purpose, I talked to Sudhir Dasmantharao. Sudhir is a global executive with 23 plus years of experience. Driving large-scale transformation projects and setting up large-scale operations is his forte. He currently heads Global Business Services for Asia Pac at Boston Scientific. He is a recipient of Indian Achievers Award in Business Leadership in 2022. He is a global advisory board member of the world's largest shared services and outsourcing network. He is an advisor to the Startup Accelerator Gurgaon Center, Haryana. He is a member of NASSCOM Northern Region and a frequent speaker at their events. He is a co-chair of FICCI Innovation and Startup Congress. He has been recognized by Speakin, which is Asia's largest speaker experts network, as an expert speaker. He considers people and relationships most important, and as you see, the list goes on and on. So without further ado, I will hand it over to Sudhir, and shall we get started, Sudhir?
Yes, Neelima, thank you so much for talking to me today.
Thank you so much for coming in. A very warm welcome to you. All right, so we're going to start with a rapid fire round. Be brief, please, and respond as fast as you can.
Okay. We try best.
All right. So what is the one word that your family will use to describe you?
I would say caring.
And what is the one word that your team would use to describe you?
Probably motivating.
Okay. All right. Name one thing that you're passionate about outside of the work.
Oh, I'm passionate about many things, but what really passionates me, always want to be part of sports. Any kind of sports.
Which is the sport that you play?
Badminton.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Name one person you're inspired by and why.
Certainly one person I always be grateful is my dad. He taught earlier childhood days, and right from always mentions about what is life and, what is the purpose of life, and how time is an essence in the lifespan, right? So those qualities and the integrity and the value system, are really inspiring. A lot I learned. And obviously there are a lot of, other leaders and personalities I always observe and learn and get inspired in terms of what they achieve in life. And then how they really organize themselves and do things more meaningfully and purposefully to the world and the society we live in.
Very nice. Thank you for sharing that. So Sudhir, how do you deal with this extremely fast-changing world?
For me, for a period of time, the realization is life is a synonym of change. Right from our childhood to adulthood, everything is changing, right? And in the corporate life, especially with the fast-paced transformation, fast-paced technological changes, and a lot of things are changing, it is always important for us to keep learning, keep experimenting, and keep exploring. These three things are very important. And as a firm believer in life, learning is a continuous process, and keep learning continues. That's a principle I follow. So the best way to deal with change is try to be part of the change, try to accept the change. Don't look at what it will happen to you, rather than what you can make out of the change. That mindset is very important. So that's how I look at in terms of, one, keep learning so that you're prepared for what's coming your way. There will be a lot of surprises in life, whether it is your professional career or your personal career, personal life. But looking at the change, and sometimes this is what I say, sometimes change also changes your mindset, help you think differently. So that's how I look at about change in life.
You're heading a fairly large setup. What do you think is the biggest leadership challenge of now?
So the biggest challenges for leadership is, not only leadership for many of us, is the distraction and disruption. These two things are big. People who can, when a distraction, and that's what, whether it is social media, whether it is the things which is happening around us, how do you deal with those distractions and how do we stay focused, right? Especially at the pace at which the technology is changing and disrupting the way we are doing things. So in leadership roles, it's typically the technological changes, dealing with it, bringing people along, because you need, as a leader, to be really very clear in terms of what you want to drive and communicate that strategy to the teams and keep pushing them and encouraging them to be preparing for the change. So these are the couple of challenges, right? And driving transformation not easy in any organization as we continue to step up to the next level. And, balancing both the distractions and disruptions is very, very critical.
Where do you think, for a mid-career professional, what is your advice to deal with distractions and disruptions?
For mid-career professionals, I think it's important that, one, they continue to focus on what they're doing, as I mentioned. So that should not be messed up, right? Second, as I mentioned, learning is always important. The second important element is you need to really be realistic in your aspirations, right? If you're not realistic in your aspirations, so everyone wants to become head of a function or a CEO or CFO, whatever that is, that aspiration is good. But are you really, building or preparing yourself to meet those aspirations? And this is the quote I keep telling people. Life isn't going to give you more than you ask. First you deserve and then desire. The deservingness is what you have to prepare for. My advice to the professionals, is to come with open mind, be passionate in everything you do, focus in terms of your learning, have someone as a sound box, to bounce back your ideas. And that, having that early mentorship really, really will help.
You said something very deep. Aspiration doesn't match the deserve, what somebody may deserve.
Yeah.
And it does happen, so often and so many times to so many people. What should they do when they're hit with this avalanche of, hey, it may be your aspiration, but you don't deserve it?
Yeah, that's where I think I'm mentioning earlier, as I mentioned earlier as well, that it is important to have someone help you, clarify and bring that thought process in you, right? So triggering the thought that what is a realistic aspiration, right? So a lot of things they need to focus on the deserving piece, which I mentioned earlier. What are the things I'm still lacking to get there, right? It is not just hierarchical growth one have to look at. You also have to look at the horizontal growth and build the knowledge and experience of how do you really look at the career more long term. rather than just a short term, right? And this is what I keep telling people, that you aspire for something. When you get there, you don't value it. Again, you look for the next level. So first start valuing what you have and do a fantastic job with what you have. And then continue to evolve, in your own personality. That's very important. And then you build that ladder in terms of your level of aspiration where you want to go.
But what should professionals do to navigate the corporate life and the whole setup? How do you think they should go about it?
So that's a very interesting question, Neelima, and I see, a lot of people struggling, right? If you look at, the organizations, so typically when you're working in an organization, I usually categorize organization into three parts, three different categories, right? The first category of an organization is like a rock. They operate like a rock. So any change in that organization is very, very tough because it's a big rock. Moving is difficult. So the navigating skills, if you're working in an environment, an organization which is like a rock, is very different. Then the second category of organization is like pebbles. They move much faster because they're small, easy, and things happen. And the third category of organization is like a sand, right? Things are like now, right? Not today, now. So you need to first assess what kind of organization and people and the leadership you're working with. So that's the first awareness, I call it, in navigating any organization. Now, when you're navigating, one of the skills you have to really build is, once you understand what kind of organization you're working with, there are three important aspects, I would call it, one have to build. The first aspect is the patience. The second aspect is persistence. And third aspect is passion. So the 3 P's, I call it the PQ. Patience is all about knowing where to pause. So there are sometimes if you don't pause and keep on pushing, you will really hit a hard rock, right? So that having a patience to knowing where to pause. The second element which I talked about, the second piece, persistence. You need to know when to push the organization, when to push the people, when to challenge the people and the organization. That is persistence. You need to continue to know when to push once you know where to pause. The third I mentioned is the passion. Knowing how to drive is very, very important. If you don't know how to drive through your passion, because if you don't channelize your passion, you end up upsetting a lot of people in the organization, right? So that's what happens with a lot of passionate people. They get disappointed because they put in a lot of energy and passion and they get disappointed. Because that's where it's important in the navigating skills. People have to understand the balance between the patience, the persistence, and passion. And that's how I really guide people to know how to use the when, where, and how in terms of navigating in any organization. It is not about a technical competency. Once you reach an number of experience, everyone will have that same kind of technical competency. The people struggle is because they really don't know these three elements of patience, the persistence, and passion.
I love PQ. And with your permission, I'll add a dimension to the persistence piece of it. Yes, you have to know how to push the system, but you have to know how to push yourself as well. Yeah. Right? It is where the skill versus grit comes in. Right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's what the passion brings. When you are passionate, you automatically push yourself. But that's where you need to know, how to push that, right? And that's what I'm saying, guys.
Do you have any insights on, how to develop that maturity to use the 3 Ps effectively?
Yeah, that is also a bit of judgmental, right? So earlier I mentioned about the disruption and distractions, right? And this is what I keep telling people, that in business, So in business, there is two components. There's an external component and the internal component. Where people struggle is on the external component where the businesses are being disrupted, right? X business is disrupting a Y business. Within organization, people disrupt people, right? So you need to know how to deal with both, right? And that is where it is very important that how do you deal with those people disruptions and distractions. People will cause you distractions. People will cause you disruptions. But how do you really build that grit in you and the passion in you to really constantly, keep at it the pace so that you are actually at the end of the day, when you go back home, at least that's what my measure is. When going back home, I'm going at a peace that I did the right thing. Because every time there is always a challenging situation. And when these challenging situations occur, that's a true test of your personality and your value system, the integrity and the way you make those decisions. So as a leadership role, that is what we always do, making the decisions. Sometimes those decisions may not be popular decisions, but is the right decision to the company and the organization you're working for. Obviously with the people, keeping the people in mind. So that is where I think you need to just keep on evolving in that space of, balancing the act wisely.
So I think that's a very nice segue. Where it is people disrupting people or a business is got disrupted by, external disruption, there are bound to be setbacks in life. So I have two questions. One, how do you deal with setbacks? And two, what is your advice to, professionals, especially mid-career professionals, about, what must they do?
Yeah. So one thing one had to realize is setbacks is part of life, right? The failure is part of life. As long as we are not really, drowning along with that failure, rather than learning out of it, right? What are the things you can learn out of those setbacks? Again, because these setbacks can distract you. When you get distracted, you will be disrupted. So it is important that, take a pause, take a step back, right? Take a step back. That's very important. And take a pause and say, what is this setback triggered out of? Very important to do the root cause analysis. And what are the things you messed up? And what are things which are factors which are not in your control? Because setbacks happen because sometimes we mess up. Sometimes there are external factors which are not in your control. So the things which we messed up, which is in our control to fix, I think that is where I would rather focus on. And knowing clearly that things which are not in my control is not in my control. So I don't worry about it. But certainly the learnings have to be firmed up. Learnings should be really helping you. And sometimes it's good to have those setbacks in life because that will also put you in a position to think differently or do things differently. So it is important to keep that mental strength. Is very, very important. The emotional grit is very important. If you don't have that emotional grit, you don't develop it, you will fall prey to these disruptions and distractions. So it is important that keep on telling to yourself, right, that yes, setback happened, and trying to accept the setback is very, very important. Come to the terms to the setback is very important. And then when you take a pause and evaluate yourself, once you evaluate yourself thoroughly, that is when you can elevate from that setback and bounce back in more stronger way, right? Your mental ability, your emotional intelligence, your empathetic mindset, you have to constantly invest in that skill set. If not, these setbacks will take you further down, right? If you don't deal with it mentally. And then that's where I keep telling people that having someone to have a mentorship is very important in your career. Having open to challenge, right? There are people I've seen doing the same role for 10 years, 5 years. And then that 10 years, 5 years is a considerable time in life. And then they figure out, oh God, I'm get stuck here now. I don't know what to do. Because you never challenged. You're in the comfort zone always. You never took challenges. So for a mid-career professional or any professional who is aspiring to grow, they have to actually challenge themselves first before someone else challenges them. So that's where I put you. You had to challenge yourself before someone is challenging you.
So, you talked about doing the root cause analysis and then figuring out, okay, where did I cause it? And what is not in my control? You're essentially asking them to, take charge, develop that mental grit, emotional grit. So I know you've given lots of insights, but this is my last and really favorite question. What would be your 2 inputs to mid-career professionals about how they can take charge of their careers?
So 2 things I would say is, one, they should be very clear in terms of what they want to do with their career, right? So for example, a lot of people say that, oh, okay, now I'm doing PMP, right? PMP kind of certification. I want to get into operations. So they're confused whether they want to build a career in a strategic role or an operation role, or the multiple roles, right? So they have to be very clear what they want to really chasing for, right? If they don't know what they're chasing for and keep on, hopping, what will happen is it's like 1 step forward and 2 step backward. So that's a common mistake people do. So when you're looking for career, they need to be very clear in terms of what is that they're really good at and what is that they can really excel at. So that clarity is very important. Most often what people do, Neelima, is the biggest mistake people do is, because something worked for someone else, right? I also want to become like them, right? That is the biggest mistake people do. What people have to understand is that because something is working out for someone else, it may not work out for you. So you need to figure out what is your passion, what is your aspiration, and what is your strength, and what is your weakness. That self-assessment is very, very important, deep in the hearts. If not, what will happen is they're just taking whatever opportunity they're getting it. Right? It's good, but what you make out of those opportunities is also important. You need to know what you make out of those opportunities. That is the second mistake people make, right? So first advice is, don't follow other footsteps. You create your own path. Second important advice is, have a constant focus of learning. If you don't have a continuous learning approach, you don't go far. So people think that, oh, okay, I did my ISB, just giving an example. I did my ISB 3 months course. Now I acquired some skill. I'm expecting a 20% jump or a new job. It will not happen, right? You need to constantly utilize and keep implementing those skills, what you learn. Right? People do Six Sigma, but they don't know how to implement Six Sigma. Right? The companies give a lot of certifications, but they don't write projects. They learn influencing skills, but they don't implement in their day-to-day life those influential skills. So the second important advice is, keep executing what you're learning. Keep implementing. You will sharpen your skills when you implement what you're learning. So these would be my 2 advice in terms of keep the focus of continuous learning. And this is my favorite quote. Always I keep telling people, life is a continuous learning. Keep learning continuous. That is very, very important. And that's what I do. Every year I pick a course, I do something new so that I'm also learning through the process. Because if you're not learning, you can never lead. Because if you don't know, what will you teach? Right? So that's very important. for someone to build and be relevant in the industry for a long-term career.
Thank you very much, Sudhir. This was very insightful. It was wonderful to have you in this episode today. And I would love for you to come back and maybe double click on the P3. I hope my audience, I hope that you picked up these pearls of wisdom that Sudhir shared. I would love to know from you what you thought about so much that you heard today, and what else can we help you figure out. Please share your questions and comments and give feedback. Thank you so much. And thank you, Sudhir, for joining me.
Thank you, Neelima. My pleasure. I think I thoroughly enjoyed. I hope the people who would hear will also enjoy. Thank you. Oh, goodness.